All right, in a bit of a surprising move, to an extent, the Mississippi Rebels, the Ole Miss, let go of Matt Luke, who had been there for 3 years, an interim year, and then 2 years after that. He was a former Ole Miss player. He played offensive line for them. He was an assistant under David Cutcliffe when he was there. He came back when Ed Orgeron was there, and then he was an assistant with Hugh Freeze. He took over for Hugh Freeze after he resigned amid all the scandal. Went 6-6, and they took away the interim tag, and then he went 5-7 and 4-8. I was a bit surprised that they made Matt Luke their interim head coach. A 6-6 year, despite having all that talent, including Shea Patterson when he was there. DK Metcalf was still young in the process. AJ Brown, all that. He didn't really have a whole lot of success. He didn't have a huge pedigree. His big takeaway was he was a former Ole Miss player, and he kind of held the team together, although you were 6-6. But they ended up giving him the job, and so it's not a bit surprised that he was let go. A 4-8 year. They were never looked at as this team in the last 3 years that was going to rise up. They just looked like a bottom dweller in the SEC West. So after they lost the Egg Bowl to Mississippi State, especially on a situation where one of those players gets flagged after scoring the potential game-tying touchdown for mimicking a urinating dog, not a surprise that he was let go. So it turns our attention to who could Ole Miss get to replace him. And where does the Ole Miss fit? Now, this is a school, like I said, that has the potential. Under Hugh Freeze, they contended for the SEC West. They had beat Alabama twice in back-to-back years. So this job with the right head coach has potential. Missouri's open. Arkansas is open. So that's 2 other SEC jobs. Florida State's open. I think, to me, this is a job that's kind of on par with the Missouris, with the Arkansas. Like Arkansas, it's in the SEC West. There's a lot of competition to try and get to that third or potentially third or fourth spot within that division. And Ole Miss has shown that they can do it. Now, who can they get? Are they going to get? They're not going to get those elite guys. We're not talking about Mike Leach here. We're not talking about Matt Campbell. Those guys doesn't seem necessarily like the right fit. There's a lot of questions with the administration at Ole Miss. Their chancellor there's some controversy around his hiring. There was some skepticism about their athletic director, who they hired there. So is that those question marks about the administration, is that going to scare some teams off or some coaches off? So here's a few candidates that I have. You have to think that Mike Norvell, Memphis' head coach, is at the top of the list. Memphis is a mere 85 miles away from Oxford. That's got to be a top recruiting bed for Ole Miss. He's got to be their top choice. But the thing is Mike Norvell's the top, potentially could be the Florida State head coach. He could be talked about for Missouri. He could be talked about for Arkansas. I think if he doesn't get that Florida State job, Ole Miss has got to look pretty intriguing to him, especially if he doesn't go after Missouri. Another one of the popular names that's out there is Appalachian State's Eli Drinkowitz. He's a guy that has only been a head coach for 1 year, but in his time, he's been very highly regarded. He's kept Appalachian State still at a high level. His offenses have been well. Before App State, he was at North Carolina State, so the Ryan Finley regime. They had Nyheim Hines, they had Jalen Samuels, and then he comes also from Boise State, so he's got that Boise State pedigree. He's one of the more popular names that are out there. You just have to wonder, is Ole Miss a job that he's willing to leave Appalachian State after 1 year, or is he someone that's going to want to stay there, continue to build up his resume, and potentially go for a higher job? That's going to be one of the big questions. Billy Napier from Louisiana Lafayette, or the University of Louisiana as they like to call it, is another name. And here's a guy that I think has got a really good shot if they don't end up with Mike Norvell. That Napier is going to be a guy that can potentially get this job. You know, he's got a strong pedigree. He coached at Clemson. It wasn't the best ending to it. He coached under Nick Saban at Alabama. And then he went to Arizona State, was the offensive coordinator there. Now he's at Louisiana Lafayette. They're having a tremendous year, 10-2. Their only losses are to Mississippi State in that beginning game and Appalachian State. So his name is really kind of jettisoned there, being the fact that he's been in Louisiana, been in Alabama. He's got a lot of those ties to that recruiting area that Ole Miss is going to have to go for. So if they don't end up getting Mike Norvell, he's definitely someone that I think you should keep an eye on, just because he's got that SEC ties. We know SEC schools like to hire SEC people, so he's someone to kind of keep an eye on. A couple of the other names: Bill Clark from UAB. The job that he's done at UAB has been nothing but tremendous. You know, he was solid before the program got shut down, and then he was able to restart the program after a year away and get them into a Conference USA championship game. Blake Anderson at Arkansas State's another guy to kind of keep an eye on. His wife passed away, so he hadn't been around the team as, you know, in a head coaching capacity for all of this year. Prior to that, he's had a lot of success. Did very well as North Carolina's offensive coordinator. He's someone to kind of keep an eye on. A couple other names. Lane Kiffin is always going to pop up there. There are reports that Arkansas's representatives were down in Florida to meet with him, so he might be a candidate there. But if Ole Miss, once again, they've got to go through Alabama, and why not take a chance on Lane Kiffin, a guy that's shown that he can recruit, a guy that has elevated Florida Atlantic into a Conference USA power. Can he do that at Ole Miss and kind of relive what they had with Hugh Freeze? Another head coach to kind of keep an eye on, Tom Allen at Indiana has led Indiana to an 8-4 record in the tough Big Ten East. Could he see Indiana reaching its ceiling right now and think, hey, I used to coach at Ole Miss under Hugh Freeze. Can he build that program up? And that would be a big step up job-wise for him to go to Indiana, to Ole Miss. So that could be, you know, he could be kind of a fallback potential guy. Willie Fritz is definitely an option. This guy has just won every single place that he's gone. He's winning at Tulane now. He won at Georgia Southern, Sam Houston State, Central Missouri, Blinn Junior College. So this guy is just a proven winner. At some point, some Power 5 team is going to take a chance on him. Could Ole Miss be that? Now, if we kind of go the coordinator route, because we've seen a lot of, you know, the top 10 coaches, they weren't all head coaches prior to getting that job. And I just mentioned Willie Fritz, but another guy to kind of keep an eye on is his offensive coordinator, Will Hall. Will Hall has head coaching experience in Division II. He was the Division II head coach, had a lot of success, took his team deep in the playoffs there. Then he went up to Memphis and worked for Mike Norvell as the offensive coordinator there. So once again, Memphis, 85 miles away from Oxford, so you've got the connections there. Now he's in Tulane with Willie Fritz as his offensive coordinator, continuing to have success. Will Hall's dad is also a high school legend, coaching legend in the state of Mississippi, so you've got to know that he's got some ties within there. So someone to kind of keep an eye on, out-of-the-box hire, but definitely has some ties. Jeff Scott and Tony Elliott, the two Clemson offensive coordinators, those are guys you got to keep an eye on. They've been very picky with where they want to go. Will Ole Miss show the interest in them? Will they want to take this Ole Miss job? They'll be kind of curious to see what they do. And then the last guy to kind of keep an eye on is Ryan Nielsen, the Saints defensive line coach. Prior to being with the Saints and engineering their defensive line, who's really exceeded a lot of expectations and a big reason why the Saints are a Super Bowl contender. Prior to that, he was at NC State, and he helped get guys like Bradley Chubb and Kadarius Street and B.J. Hill. I mean, they had a lot of talent on that defensive line. He helped recruit them. He helped develop them. He was their recruiting coordinator during their, the success they've had the last few years. And Nielsen also comes from the Ed Orgeron tree, so he's got some ties there in the South. That would just definitely be a name to keep an eye on. Who do I think they're going to look at? I think Mike Norvell's got to be their number one choice. I'm not sure if Florida State's going to hire him, so Ole Miss could be the next best job for him. I think the only competition is at Arkansas and Missouri, and I think the thing that would pull him away from Ole Miss would be Missouri being in the SEC East. If they don't get Mike Norvell, my guess is it'll be Billy Napier, who also follows me on Twitter. Thanks, Coach Napier, for that. I think that he's got a lot of things that would really benefit him in this job, and so that's why I think he'd be a good consolation prize if they're not able to get Mike Norvell. And it's not like you're getting a consolation with him. He's had a tremendous year.